The following posts were all found in the archives of Futaba Channel, aka 2chan, an anonymous text board turned image board where users ask questions, discuss topics, and in some cases, share personal stories. For this video, a handful of the most bizarre and disturbing posts have been translated from Japanese into English. The OPs behind all 5 claim them to be true. But just before we dive into them, the holidays are my favourite time of year, but let's face it, it's also the most hectic. Between keeping up with work, attending events, and spreading festive cheer, there's not a lot of time to run extra errands. That's why today's sponsor, Stamps.com, is a real lifesaver. With Stamps.com, you can print postage online and handle all of your mailing and shipping needs without stepping foot into a post office. Whether you're running a small business or managing a multi-location organisation, Stamps is your holiday hero. From marketing materials and forms to products for your online store, they've got you covered, seamlessly connecting with every major marketplace and shopping cart. Avoid those holiday traffic jams and long lines. With just a computer and a printer, you can schedule package pickups, access USPS and UPS services, and see the cheapest and fastest shipping options, all from the comfort of your desk or on the go using the mobile app. Holiday expenses can add up fast, but Stamps saves you money with discounts that you can't find anywhere else. We're talking up to 89% off USPS and UPS rates. They'll even send you a free digital scale to get started. So, more holiday, less hassle. Free up more time with Stamps.com. Sign up at Stamps.com/LazyMasquerade for a special offer that includes a 4-week trial, plus free postage and a free digital scale. No long-term commitments or contracts. Just go to Stamps.com/LazyMasquerade. If you've been paying attention to current events, then you know that there's been a huge uptick in Yamibaito cases, especially in the Kanto region. For those who aren't aware, Yamibaito basically translates into black market part-time job. It's work that's advertised online, with each listing promising quick and easy money. Yakuza membership has been steadily declining as of late, and so they've turned to outsourcing some of their work. With a drop-off in Yakuza dominance, new criminal rackets have also started to spring up, scouting for new recruits to help them with anything, from robbing stores to swindling grandmas out of their life savings. Those who respond to the ads generally fall into one of 2 categories: young, gung-ho delinquents too stupid to get a real job, or down on their luck losers who don't exactly know what they're getting into until it's too late. I guess you could say I fall into that second category. For months, I'd been struggling to find a job, and was pretty desperate for cash. My poor grades and lack of a degree meant I was basically unemployable in the white-collar sector, so despite my scrawny frame, I'd been working as a labourer for a company that had just gone bust. My mother was very sick. Her medical bills were piling up. My rent was overdue. You get the picture. One thing I had, which few people in Japan do, was a truck. That allowed me to do odd jobs here and there, helping people move heavy items, doing the occasional bit of work for small construction companies, all cash in hand, I'm afraid to say. But work had dried up. I spent most nights looking through the lesser-known recruitment boards online, searching for anyone in need of a workman. Most of the ads were either junk or looked too suspicious, but I was keeping an eye out. That's when I found a listing for a delivery driver. It was short and simple. Heavy goods transporter needed. One-night job. No experience necessary. Must be reliable and ready to go ASAP. It listed 60,000 yen for one night of work, with the payment being made immediately after completion of the job. Too good to be true, right? Well, I messaged them, and within minutes, got a response. The person I chatted with seemed really friendly, and told me to download a private messaging app called Signal for quicker and easier communication. On the app, I could see that she was an attractive woman, around my age, who claimed to work for an asphalt company. She asked me to send a photo of my driver's license to confirm I could legally make the delivery, and that made sense. Once checked, she told me to meet at midnight, near the docks. Not a great sign, I know, but I figured I'd check it out, hear them out, and bail if things turned shady. At worst, I'd wasted a little time. At best, I'd made some much-needed cash. When I got to the docks, the place was deserted. I waited, checking my phone, when a man emerged from behind a shipping container. He stopped at a distance, his face half in shadow. "You're my guy?" I nodded, not daring to say a word. He gave me a once-over, then stepped forward. Up close, I could see that he was older than me, mid-40s, with slicked-back hair. The kind of guy who looked like he'd kill me without blinking if he needed to. The suit he wore was completely unfit for work at the dockyard. He hopped into my passenger's side seat and directed me to drive closer to a specific shipping container. Then, once parked up, he motioned for me to follow him into it. We approached the container in silence, and he unlocked it. Inside were 3 metal drums. "Come on, give me a hand with these." My stomach dropped, but the guy's eyes told me that this wasn't optional anymore. I helped him load the drums onto the back of my truck, gritting my teeth at the sheer weight of each one. They were heavy, cold to the touch, and sealed tight with thick metal lids that didn't offer any clue about what was inside. When we were done, he handed me an envelope. Surprisingly, it was half of the payment up front. He told me to check my phone, and then left in a black sedan without saying so much as a goodbye. Eventually, some instructions came through on Signal. A location pin dropped in a remote area. "Drive straight there. Don't stop, no matter what. When you arrive, they'll know what to do." Rather than ask what I was delivering, I pulled away from the container yard. My thoughts kept drifting to the weight of the drums, the strange secrecy, but the money was real, and I had bills to pay. So I did as I was told, keeping an eye out for police cars, just in case. The pin led me to an asphalt plant, which looked exactly as you'd expect. Isolated, grim, with towering silos and thick machinery, dimly lit by a few fluorescent lights. When I arrived, a worker, sweaty, grimy and indifferent, met me at the gate and waved me through. He directed me to a steaming vat of coal tar, a dark, bubbling mass used for paving roads. He gave me a brief, wordless nod, motioning to the drums. I opened the truck bed and rolled out the first drum over the back, trying not to breathe too deeply as the hot stench of tarmac filled my lungs. The worker handed me a crowbar, gesturing for me to pop the lid. I did so, prying it with all my effort, but the moment the seal broke, a foul stench filled the air. Chemicals, sharp and nauseating. I recoiled, trying not to gag, but the worker just looked up at me and laughed. "First time cooking meat stew?" he wheezed in a thick Chinese accent, exposing a half-complete set of brown teeth. His breath cut through even the chemicals and stung my nose further. I forced myself to look inside the drum. The contents were wrapped tightly in thick plastic sheeting, taped up to form a solid mass. I couldn't make out what was inside, but I felt an overwhelming sense of dread. I shoved the drum's contents over a conveyor belt, watching as it journeyed towards a bubbling mixture of coal tar and gravel that burned at 3,000 degrees. We repeated the process with the other 2. As soon as I was done, the worker handed me 20,000 yen, 10 short of what I'd been promised, but enough to keep me going for a while, enough to buy my silence. With a simple hand gesture, he waved me off without a word. The job was complete. I told myself it was best not to ask questions. When I got home, I checked my phone once again. There was a new message on Signal. "Nice work. There'll be more for you. If you're smart, you won't speak about this to anyone. We'll be in contact." I stayed up all night, questioning what I had just done, rationalizing away the darkest possibilities, but one word stuck out in my mind. Yamibaito. I'd heard the term used once or twice, but hadn't clocked that I could fall victim to it. But would gangsters really hire a random guy to transport... No, that was ridiculous. Of course, I began researching how Yamibaito groups operate, just in case. Learned how they use secret, heavily encrypted messaging apps to communicate with their part-time workers. How they employ a chain of middlemen to cover their tracks and shift liability. How you never really know who's behind it all. Still, this had been a one-time deal, and I'd have to live without knowing for sure what I'd disposed of. By the end of the month, the money had dried up, but I had no intention of browsing any dodgy recruitment sites again. But I didn't need to. Around that same time, a new message came through on the app that I'd almost forgotten about. Signal. I politely replied to whoever was orchestrating things that I wasn't interested in any further work, but they kept texting me. I ignored their messages for a solid hour. That is, until they sent me a photo of my apartment building. Shit, my address was on my driver's license. I considered contacting the police right then and there, but felt that 1. I'd be implicating myself too much, and 2. Signal was a confidential app that permanently deleted each message sent, so I had no evidence that they were blackmailing me. Heck, I didn't even know who was blackmailing me. Before I could fully consider my options, a message came through. Is Mummy home? I went to the location they sent me, picked up some more cargo, as they called it, and drove it to the asphalt plant. I noticed how after releasing their contents, the drums were washed out in a large device, as if preparing them for reuse. This time the pay was half of what it had been. Not that I could kick up a fuss. They had me, hook, line and sinker. That evening, I figured it best to install a secret dashcam to capture my interactions as leverage should I ever need it. My new employers messaged me again a few weeks later, and then again a few weeks after that. Each time, I'd pick up the drums from different locations, sometimes the docks, sometimes a storage facility on the outskirts of the city. I'd always be assisted by a new face, who would tell me to drive to the same asphalt plant. There, I'd dump the contents into the vat of coal tar, and then leave. I'd gotten used to ignoring the strange weight and the awful smell of the cans. My mother's medical bills were piling up, and I kept reminding myself that this was for her. But eventually, curiosity got the better of me. One night, after another pickup, I couldn't resist. I drove to a deserted back road and carefully pried open the lid of one of the drums. The contents were wrapped up in the same thick plastic sheeting, but this time, something was different. Part of the wrapping had loosened, revealing a hint of what was underneath. My hands were shaking as I pulled back the plastic. There, staring up at me through a layer of cellophane, was a human face. Pale, one eye open, the other half open, skin stretched tight across lifeless features. I stumbled back, dropping the crowbar. My mind was racing, a sick feeling rising in my gut as my darkest suspicion was confirmed. Those drums I'd been transporting to the plant had been filled with bodies. I'd been helping them dispose of murdered enemies of one syndicate or another, erasing them in vats of coal tar where no one would ever find them. All trace of them erased. Their melted bodies used to pave city roads. I slammed the lid back onto the drum and sat there in silence. Say what you will, but I finished the job that night, dumped the bodies as usual, and immediately removed the recording equipment from my truck out of fear of being found out. But I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that face staring up at me. I spent the rest of the night trying to figure out what to do, though in the pit of my stomach, I knew there was no way out of this. I had already dug myself in too deep, and the people I was working for weren't the kind of people you walk away from. Desperately, my mind tried to find an escape route. I could drop an anonymous tip, let the cops know what was going on at the asphalt plant. But then again, I'd been making these deliveries of my own accord, using my own vehicle, and had no evidence of who had been messaging me, or even that I had been messaged. I still had footage of a few low-level grunts giving me vague instructions, sure, but other saps who have gone down for Yamibaito played the ignorance card too, saying they didn't know what they were involved in, and that they had been blackmailed. And you know where those guys are right now? Rotting in a Japanese prison. I could run away, move to the countryside, but my mother was too old and too sick to leave the apartment. Perhaps I could just crash my truck. Maybe they'd find another driver. I'd struggle to make ends meet without it, but I'd find a way. But then I thought of all the people who had done this job before me. Had they been in one of the drums I had delivered? Was I their replacement? If I screwed up, was I going to be replaced. I started avoiding the signal messages, hoping that they'd just give up on me, but after a few days, a new message came through. Another delivery. No delays. I ignored it. A part of me knew I was putting myself and my mother in danger, but I couldn't bring myself to go back. Not after what I'd seen. But the messages kept coming, each more insistent than the last. Don't ignore me. Or do you want your mum to end up in a tin can? We own you. That night, I drove to the plant with a single drum I'd collected. I went through the motions mechanically, pushing the drum's contents into the bubbling tar, watching it sink beneath the surface. I didn't look inside, didn't think about what or who I was disposing of. I'd become numb. And I kept doing it. Every few weeks, drum after drum, because I knew there was no escape. The guy was right. They owned me, had me in their grip with no way out. And each time I drove away from the plant, I couldn't shake the realization that I'd become just another cog in their machine. Another disposable worker doing their dirty work, burying their secrets in asphalt. When my mother passed away, I packed my essentials, factory reset my phone, and moved out of Tokyo, telling no one where I was going. I'm sure at least one of you will send in a tip about this story, and that's fine. I'm confident enough time's passed. I've been careful not to give away anything that could identify me in this write-up, and don't bother asking for any more info either. I've since found new work in a far-off city, and life is going much better for me these days. I occasionally have to make business trips through Tokyo, and each time I do, I can't help but think how smooth the roads are, and what's hidden inside them. This story was posted shortly before a syndicate was exposed for using this exact same asphalt method to dispose of human remains. Awareness of Yamibaito has since grown, and is currently one of the main news topics in Japan. TLDR, I made the worst mistake of my life trying to make my ex jealous. If you have ever thought about hiring a rent-a-girlfriend to show off, don't. Here's how it all started. My ex, Natsumi, and I had been broken up for about 8 months. She dumped me, saying that I lacked ambition, and I spent months wallowing while she moved on to Daiki, some hotshot lawyer who probably wakes up doing push-ups and who wears suits that cost more than my entire paycheck. It stung even worse when I learned that she'd be attending my cousin's Western-style wedding here in Nagasaki, and that she was bringing Daiki with her. I couldn't bear the thought of showing up alone, looking like the sad loser that she left behind. Enter Mio. I found Mio on one of those rent-a-girlfriend apps. The service was surprisingly professional. Profile pictures, bios. Mio stood out immediately. Late 20s. Cute, but not overly flashy, dyed brown hair, and a soft smile that looked genuine. We met up once before the wedding to go over some details. She seemed kind, professional, and honestly was way too good at her job. Noting my nerves, she confidently stated, "Don't worry, we'll make it look natural," giving me tips on how to act like a convincing boyfriend, and laying her hand atop mine in a reassuring way. At the wedding, Mio was incredible. She laughed at my jokes, clung to my arm like we were madly in love, and even teased me in a playful way that felt real. Natsumi definitely noticed. I caught her sneaking glances at us all night, and her lawyer boyfriend looked bored out of his mind. Toward the end of the reception, Natsumi actually pulled me aside and said, "We should catch up sometime." Suddenly, Mio took charge, and to my surprise, started making out with me right then and there. That wasn't supposed to be part of the service. I guess she was really willing to go the extra mile to make Natsumi jealous. Nice extra as it was, I soon came to my senses and looked around, noticing at least a dozen guests and the foreign priest staring at us in shock. Needless to say, we made a hasty exit, admittedly laughing as we did. After all, it was mission accomplished. Or so I thought. The next morning, I got a line message from Mio. Ohayo gozaimasu. Had a dream about you last night. I figured she was just being friendly, and texted back a polite thank you, letting her know I appreciated her help. She replied almost immediately. I had so much fun yesterday. Let's meet up again soon, okay? I didn't respond, figuring she was just trying to make an extra buck out of me. How about this weekend? Off the clock, of course. Oh, well, perhaps my old charm had rubbed off on her. Honestly, I'm not sure what Mio saw in me. I'm not particularly good looking or well off, but she seemed to keep pushing for a meetup. She was really cute, but falling for someone who goes on dates with other guys would have destroyed my mind more than Natsumi breaking things off with me. Anyway, I'd already gotten what I needed, and decided not to text Mio back. As luck would have it, Natsumi texted me back later that same day, saying that she missed me and wanted to catch up. One coffee date turned into 3, and before I knew it, we were seeing each other again. And Mio? I figured she had moved on to her next client. Except she hadn't. Every morning, she sent me good morning texts. Every night, she'd tell me sweet dreams. She started sending pictures of her meals, claiming that she had cooked them for me, and even sent me selfies from random places, saying, "Wish you were here." I ignored her. And that's when things started getting creepy. One night, I came home to find a plastic bag hanging on my doorknob. Inside was a bento box with a handwritten note. "Made this just for you. Enjoy. Mio." How did she even know where I lived? I called her immediately. "Mio," I said, "this has to stop. We had a business arrangement, and it's over. Please don't contact me ever again." She giggled down the line, as if I had just told her a funny joke. "Oh, don't be silly. I know you're just saying that because she's beside you." I hung up and blocked her on everything. Line, Instagram, Facebook, every social media platform. But that didn't stop her. Over the next week, my mailbox started filling up with love letters. Dozens of them, all signed Mio. My trash can was overturned every other morning, and I swear I could feel someone watching me at night. Things came to a head when Natsumi came over one evening and parked in my usual spot. The next morning, she found a single rose on her windshield with a note. "You're in the way. Leave him, or else." Natsumi freaked out and obviously wanted to call the police. I convinced her not to, thinking this would all blow over. Big mistake. Eventually, Natsumi and I made things official. She posted a picture of us on Instagram, just a casual couple selfie. A message appeared under it from an account name I didn't recognize. "You'll regret this." That night, my doorbell rang at 3 a.m. I stumbled to the door, groggy and annoyed, but when I peered through the peephole, I saw Mio standing there in the rain, mascara running down her cheeks. I called the police. They told me to document everything, but said that they couldn't do much unless Mio physically harmed someone. The next day, I went to the agency that hired her, but they told me she no longer worked for them. When I pressed for details, the manager looked uncomfortable. We had to terminate her contract, he told me. There were issues. "And when was this?" I asked. "Oh, many months ago now." My mind boggled. Why had she still been available for contact through their app? "Oh, sorry, we're a small company, you understand. Sometimes we forget to update our servers." Arsehole. That same week, as I was watching TV and waiting for Natsumi to come over after work, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from Natsumi's number. "If you love her so much, come and find her." Attached was a picture of Natsumi, sat in a chair, looking terrified. The background was dark, but I recognized it instantly. The chapel on the outskirts of town. The same one my cousin's wedding had been held in. I didn't think. I just drove, dialing the cops as I did. The church was even creepier than I remembered. My flashlight flickered as I pushed open the rotting doors, the creak echoing throughout the cavernous space. And that's when I saw her. Mio. She was standing at the altar in a white wedding dress. Her hair was wild, her makeup smudged, and her eyes burned with a manic intensity. Natsumi was slumped in a chair nearby, crying. "You came," Mio said, her voice bright and cheerful, as if we were meeting for a date. "I knew you would. Now we can finally be together." "Mio, let her go," I said, trying to keep my voice from shaking. "This has gone far enough, don't you think?" She tilted her head, her smile never wavering. "Oh, don't worry about her. She doesn't matter anymore. You love me now, don't you?" She stepped closer, wiping a bloody knife that she held in her hand against her white dress. "Remember just over there? That's where we shared our first kiss." "Oh, Mio," I said. "Please, I don't even know you." Her smile faltered. For the first time, I saw something dark and dangerous flash across her face. "You don't get it, do you? She only wants you because of me. She ditched you, remember?" She twirled the blade in her hand as she spoke. "I wouldn't do that. I'm standing here willing to make a promise, a commitment, and you're just throwing it back in my face." She began to step towards Natsumi. I don't remember what happened next. Adrenaline took over. I lunged at Mio, knocking the knife out of her hand, and the rest is just black. Officers from the local Koban arrived just in time. As they dragged Mio away, she screamed, "You'll never be happy with her. You'll regret this." Thankfully, Natsumi's injuries weren't serious. After the incident, she went to stay with her parents. I called her and explained the entire situation. How I'd hired Mio to try and win her back, and how she must have developed some sort of attachment to me. That went down about as well as you'd expect. Natsumi left me, for the second time, and as karma would have it, got back together with Daiki. I guess it's what I deserve, given this whole situation was my fault, and I haven't heard from her since. As for Mio, she was given a short sentence and a restraining order. This all happened about 2 years ago, so why bring this story up now, you may ask? Well, frankly, after pushing everyone I care about away, I'm looking for some advice and support. Recently, my phone keeps buzzing with calls from an unknown number, but I never answer them. I don't have to. The follow-up texts make it clear who's calling. Mio's out, and she's looking for me. I've installed new locks and security cameras, changed my number, but it doesn't feel like enough. Sometimes, late at night, I hear Mio's words in my head. "You'll regret this." I already do. My buddy Kenji has always been a little eccentric. For years, he had gotten lost in weird rabbit holes about precognition, telekinesis, astral projection, whatever caught his attention at the time. He had quit his job and become something of a hikikomori, rarely leaving his apartment and devoting the majority of his time to those hobbies. But this last obsession was next level, even for him. It started when he found this old hardback in a second-hand bookstore in Saitama. He called me at 2 AM, practically yelling down the phone. "Teleportation," he said. "There's a way to learn it here." I thought he was joking, but a week later, Kenji showed up at my apartment, eyes wild, practically vibrating with excitement. He shoved the book into my hands, insisting I read it. He called it a grimoire, but to me, it just looked like some old science book. Honestly, the text inside looked like gibberish. Old, indecipherable kanji, weird diagrams, and just page after page talking about ley lines and gateways. How certain specific points in the world are connected with others, and how you can jump from one to the next. One warning read that you had to be careful which exit you jump to though, or else you could end up somewhere that you don't want to be. It was all a load of drivel, of course, but Kenji swore it was real. He believed it held the key to teleporting anywhere in an instant, All he had to do was decode some of the archaic characters. Just think about it, dude. No more trains, no more long flights. Just... you're wherever you want to be, instantaneously. Obviously, I tried to reason with him. I told him he was spending too much time alone indoors, that he needed to go outside, talk to people, touch grass, maybe even see a doctor. But he just laughed it off, saying, "I'm on the verge of something incredible here." Concerned for his mental well-being, I started paying Kenji regular visits after work. His room had turned into a mess of incense, chalk circles, and pages covered in equations and frantic scribbles. His skin got pale, and he lost weight. When I asked if he was even eating, he'd just smile and say, "Almost there now." The day he broke his leg, he called me, laughing like a lunatic, saying he had come so close, said he had just missed by a few meters. I went over and found him lying at the foot of the staircase, clutching his leg, barely able to stand. He had this eerie look in his eyes, manic but satisfied. I got him to the hospital, but the whole way he just kept muttering, "I was there. I was actually there." He claimed that he had teleported from a different room, but came out on the staircase and took a fall. The doctors didn't think he was safe to go home. They wanted him to stay overnight, not just for his leg, but for a mental evaluation. I was relieved, honestly. I hoped a night under medical supervision would help him snap out of it. The next day, I went to check on him, only to find his bed empty, covered in what appeared to be a gravel-like substance. The staff were just as confused as I was. They checked every record, every security camera. They swore he hadn't checked out, hadn't been discharged, nothing. It was as if he simply disappeared. According to a nurse, the last time that she had seen Kenji, he was lying in his bed, reading an old book. I pushed down the rising panic inside me, telling myself there had to be a rational explanation. Days passed. His family plastered the city with missing person posters, contacted everyone who might have seen him, but nobody knew anything. Then, exactly 1 week later, we got a call from the police. Inside a disused warehouse in Hokkaido, halfway across the country from where Kenji had been hospitalized, they found a pair of severed human legs, lying outstretched against a thick concrete wall. One of the legs was in a hospital cast. The rest of the body was nowhere in sight. A DNA test confirmed that the legs belonged to Kenji. The police didn't know what to make of the scene, whether some of the local bears had got to him, or whether this was the work of an active psychopath. As to how he had travelled so far from Saitama with a broken leg, and why he had gone to an abandoned warehouse in Hokkaido, well, even his family couldn't explain that. All I could do was think about Kenji's damn book, his theories, his mutterings that night about almost getting it right. I told the officers what Kenji had been working on, but they just gave me that pitying look, like I'd lost it too. They sealed off the warehouse, chalked it up to misadventure, said that bears got the rest of him, and closed the case. But I can't get it out of my head. Had Kenji truly lost his marbles, or had he really figured it out? Just enough to make it across the country, but not enough to survive the journey. As for the book itself, nobody knows where it is, but I have a horrible feeling that if you were to knock down that wall in that disused warehouse, you'd find it embedded in the concrete, along with the missing parts of my friend. The legend of Room 404 has been circulating on dark web forums and hacker sites for years. Most people dismiss it as a myth, but the story goes like this. Room 404 is an exclusive chat room that appears randomly on certain covert messaging platforms at exactly 4:04 AM, a time when most people are either deeply asleep or delirious from staying up too late. There are no invitations, and there's no way to access it intentionally. And supposedly, the link just appears in your recommended or random rooms once in a while, labelled simply as Room 404. Whether out of intrigue or ignorance, the room fills up whenever it's live. Only 8 users can join Room 404 each time it appears, and no usernames are visible in the chat. Everyone's assigned an anonymous ID, User 01, User 02, and so on. There's a host, who could be human or bot, and their messages appear in a distinct font without a username. The chat usually opens with complete silence. No one wants to be the first to speak. But as soon as someone breaks that silence, something strange starts happening. A scripted message will appear, which simply reads, "Welcome. You will shortly be asked a series of questions. Please answer them honestly." Users typically respond with various jokes, but the chat usually remains tense. Soon, the questions start to appear. Some general, like, "Why are you here? How much do you trust strangers? What scares you the most? Or, what would you do if you couldn't leave?" And others, more pointed, personal, and oddly specific, mentioning recent events in each user's area. Though some people believe these prompts are generated by an algorithm, others feel like the chat's being moderated by a real human being. After each question, the room begins to purge the chat by ejecting each participant one by one. The order appears to be based on a vote. The questions appear at 2-minute intervals, and after each one, a poll appears with each user's anonymous ID. Dozens of votes are cast, suggesting that the conversation is being watched in real time by an unseen audience. What metrics they use to decide their vote remains unknown. The user with the least votes is immediately ejected from the chat. The moment before you're kicked, your username changes to your IP address, then suddenly converts to a seemingly random string of kanji and numbers. Many people leave feeling confused, except those who realize that those random characters are their exact home address written backwards. More recently, some users have reported hearing faint sounds or seeing flickers on their screens while in Room 404, as if the host was trying to access their microphone or webcam. Any attempt to leave the chat early results in a pop-up box with the phrase, "Leaving so soon?" The only way to exit is to disconnect your device from the internet or stick things out to the end. Speculation about Room 404 runs wild. Some say it's a digital surveillance network test run by government or private intelligence agencies. They speculate that participants in Room 404 are added to an experimental surveillance list, marked as compliant or resistant based on their answers. Others theorize that Room 404 is a training ground for an AI meant to model human behavior in anonymous settings. The questions are supposedly designed to draw out predictable patterns and test what types of conversations provoke emotional reactions. The address reveal at the end, they say, is intended to be disturbing enough to discourage returning users, allowing the experiment to keep its integrity by engaging only newcomers. A small subset of people believe that Room 404 is something much more sinister, that it's an interview of sorts, and that each participant is inadvertently auditioning for a red room. This theory is substantiated by the surprisingly large number of past users who've talked about their experience with Room 404, only to fall off the face of the internet entirely. Among them, one particular story stands out, shared by a community forum user going by the name Ordinary Soul. They claimed that they were able to join Room 404 on 3 separate occasions, but were always voted out before the end. What Ordinary Soul had noticed was a pattern. Most users tended to give joke answers to the questions, but unlike on most platforms, in Room 404, those who gave more serious and considered responses seemed to receive more votes from the invisible audience and survived to the next round. Curious to see if there was a prize for making it all the way, on his last foray, Ordinary Soul began to give more sincere answers to the questions. When asked, "What's the worst way to die?" he typed, "Being flayed alive." When asked about who would miss him if he suddenly died, he said, "I have no wife, no children, and though my parents would mourn me, they're old. After they're gone, it's likely no one will remember me." He made it to the final, where he and the other remaining user were asked, "What would you do if someone was watching you right now?" Ordinary Soul responded, "I'd make the cowards show themselves." He gained the lion's share of the vote, and came in first place. Seconds later, his competitor was disconnected without fanfare, leaving OS alone in the chat room. The final message, posted by either the host or a bot, simply read, "Congratulations, you're our winner. You'll receive your reward in the coming weeks. See you soon." As with all the other players, Ordinary Soul's username then briefly changed to his IP address and home address before the room shut down entirely. According to a series of posts Ordinary Soul later made on that same forum, he'd begun noticing faint sounds coming from his computer. He described it as static-like bursts of unintelligible whispers. He later reported seeing the green light on his webcam turn on, suggesting it was active despite him not having used it. It switched itself off hastily, and he chalked it up to a simple glitch. Days later though, he started receiving ominous emails from various untraceable addresses, the subject lines reading, "Your prize," but each email only contained images of empty rooms, shadows, and distorted faces. He wrote back to the sender, but never received a reply. When he tried to download or take a screen capture of the images, they'd turn out blank. When he saw room 404 appear again, he tried to rejoin in hopes of getting some answers, but found that he had been blocked. In a thread a week later, he wrote how he had just logged off and gone to bed, but had been awoken by a text-to-speech voice loudly croak from his computer.
"Good night, Tsubasa."
Tsubasa was OS's real name. He jolted up, noticing the green light on his webcam active again, and rushed over to disconnect the cam and his microphone. In that same thread, he responded to commenters, some telling him he was just paranoid, others advising him to turn off his computer and get out of the house. He stated that he would, and, using his phone, said he was making his way to an internet cafe in town where he'd be able to stay for the night. The last post by Ordinary Soul simply read, "I'm almost at the cafe, but I think I'm being followed IRL." No one has heard from him since. Do you guys ever think how many cults there are in Japan? It's a lot, but every time someone brings it up, it sounds way crazier than it actually is. Most of them are harmless stuff. Old ladies getting together to pray for good weather, some pyramid scheme dressed up as a spiritual awakening, or some hippie types meditating in the woods. Mostly scams, you know. You laugh it off, because no one's really drinking the Kool-Aid over here. Or so I thought. So last week, my buddy Yuto hit me up out of the blue. We hadn't talked in ages, but he's always been a chill guy, with a strong flower power vibe. The type of dude who brews his own kombucha, and who goes on retreats instead of holidays. Anyway, he tells me he's been going to these spiritual sessions lately, and says I should check it out. It's no big deal, he tells me. Just a group of like-minded people talking about improving themselves. You'll like it. At first, I'm like, nah, sounds like some MLM garbage. But the thing is, Yuto doesn't usually fall for that kind of stuff. Plus, he's been acting off. He dodges questions when I tease him, and there's this weird edge to his voice, like he's too eager. Part of me's worried he's fallen into a scam, but another part's just curious. I mean, who wouldn't want to peek behind the curtain, right? So I agree to join him on one of these meetings. He gives me the details. It's in this old office building downtown. Nothing fancy, just 3 stories and a large basement, but supposedly owned by the group's leader and used exclusively for the group's own purposes. We meet up, and Yuto's got this big grin plastered on his face, like he's high on something. He's carrying a tote bag with some symbol on it, kind of like a yin-yang, but with way too many squiggly lines. He doesn't explain. We get to the place, and it's not what I expect. The room is plain, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, with mismatched folding chairs arranged in a circle. There are maybe 15 people, all ages, and everyone's being weirdly polite, like a PTA meeting or something. nobody looks like a cultist. No robes, no shaved heads, just regular people sipping tea and nodding like they're in on some secret. Yuto introduces me to the leader, a middle-aged man called Mr. Kondo. He's all smiles, wearing a simple grey suit. Looks like an accountant. Totally harmless. "Welcome, welcome," Kondo says, bowing politely as he does. "You're here to seek the truth. I hope you'll find it enlightening." Yeah, okay, whatever. But the vibe's a bit off. Everyone's being too nice, like they're all rehearsing for some indie drama about small-town life. The session starts with introductions. Everyone talks about what brought them there. Stuff like stress at work, trouble sleeping, vague spiritual emptiness, normal problems. Then they start sharing how Mr. Kondo and his teachings helped them. One lady says she cured her migraines. Another guy claims that he stopped having nightmares. It's all pretty tame until Yuto speaks up. "I've been coming here for a few months now," he says, "and I feel so much more connected. Like I'm finally seeing the world for what it really is." The room goes quiet for a second, and everyone stares at me like they're expecting me to clap or something. I just nod awkwardly, and Kondo chuckles. "It's natural to feel skeptical at first," he says, "but the more you open your mind, the more the truth reveals itself." "Okay, sure, but what's the truth? Nobody's actually explaining anything." I lean over to Yuto and whisper, "Is this the whole thing? Just some group therapy?" Next comes the meditation exercise. Kondo dims the lights and tells us to close our eyes. His voice gets all soft and soothing as he guides us through some generic relaxation script. Breathe in, breathe out, visualize your energy flowing through your body. You know the drill. I'm halfway to zoning out when he drops this line. "Now, imagine the thread connecting you to the Great Wheel." I open my eyes just enough to subtly look around, and everyone else is deep in it, swaying slightly in their chairs. Kondo's voice gets lower, almost like a whisper. "The Great Wheel turns, and we turn with it. But some threads must be severed to keep the balance." What threads? What balance? I glance around, but nobody else looks freaked out. Kondo keeps going, talking about how our inner weights are dragging the wheel off course. He says we need to purge the impurities to restore harmony. Then he pulls out this thing. It's a wooden disc, about the size of a dinner plate, with that squiggly yin-yang symbol carved into it. He places it within a round slot in the floor, in the center of the circle. It fits into it like a glove, and he tells us to focus our energy on it. That's when I notice the air feels heavy, like the room's suddenly too small. The fluorescent lights flicker, but maybe I'm just imagining it. Kondo's voice gets sharper, almost commanding. "Focus. Let go of your doubt. Feel the wheel turning." The others are chanting now, softly at first, but it builds into this low, rhythmic hum. My chest feels tight, and my guts are screaming, "Get out!" But I don't want to bail and leave Yuto there by himself, so I stay. The chanting reaches this weird crescendo, and Kondo slams his hand onto the desk. The room goes dead silent, and just for a split second, I swear I hear something, like a faint, grinding noise, metal on metal, coming from nowhere and everywhere. I make eye contact with the others, but nobody else seems concerned about it. Rather, they nod in unison. Kondo looks up, eyes wide, and says, "The wheel turns." Everyone murmurs, "The wheel turns," like it's a reflex. Then Kondo turns to me. "Anon, would you like to offer your doubts to the wheel?" Before I can answer, Yuto nudges me and whispers, "It's okay, just touch the disc." My brain's screaming no, but all eyes are on me. I reach out, and the second my fingers graze the wood, I feel this pull, like something's tugging at my chest. Not physically, but inside. I jerk my hand back, and Kondo's smile falters. "You're resisting," he says softly. "That's normal for beginners. But remember, the wheel spares no one." Spare me from what exactly? Nobody explains. The session ends soon after, and I practically drag Yuto outside. As soon as we're alone, I ask him straight up, "What the hell was that?" Yuto shrugs. "It's hard to explain. You have to experience it a few times to understand." That's when I notice the tote bag again. It's noticeably empty now, and I point it out. "What was in there?" I ask. He hesitates, and then smiles. "Offerings for the wheel." I don't push. I just go home, but I'm seriously worried about him now. I want to make him see sense, so I plan on attending the next meeting with him and calling out this nonsense for what it is. Maybe then he'll see sense. Update. Okay, so I went back like I said. Don't judge me. I wanted to know what the hell my friend was getting into. This time, I didn't plan to blend in. Everyone was super friendly again, but not in a fake way. They genuinely seemed happy to see me there. Mr. Kondo, the leader, gave a little speech about how the wheel turns for us all, and how our threads of doubt need to be severed to set us free. Still vague, and I just sat there with my arms crossed. But there's something about the way he talks. It's calm and commanding at the same time, like he knows exactly how to make you listen. During the meditation, I planned to nudge Yuto, when I felt that heaviness in the air again. The disc was back, and people were touching it one by one. When it got to me, I thought, heck, what's the harm in trying? This time, it felt stronger, like something inside me was being pulled apart. Not painful, but weirdly relieving. Yuto said afterwards, "See, you're starting to feel it." Feel what exactly? I'm not sure, but I can't stop thinking about it. We're meeting Kondo for a beer later, so I can pick his brain a little more and prove logically how their beliefs don't add up in front of Yuto. That should make him see sense. Update 2. Yuto and I met with Mr. Kondo for a beer after work. I plan to challenge his logic and expose him in front of Yuto. It's hard to explain, but after a bit of back and forth, I felt like I started to get it. The wheel isn't literal, duh. It's like this concept of life and energy constantly turning, with all of us as threads attached to it. When we cling to negative things, like doubt, fear, anger, it slows the wheel down. That's why the sessions are about letting go. When you touch the disc, you're focusing your energy to release those negative threads. We had a meditation session later that evening, and honestly, I felt lighter afterwards. I didn't realize how much stress I was carrying until now. I know it sounds hokey, but it worked. Yuto says it's the same for him. Even his boss has been noticing how productive he's been lately. Update 3. I know you guys are calling me a sucker in the thread, but hear me out. The wheel makes sense. Think about it. How much of your life is spent worrying about things you can't control? The wheel teaches us that those worries are just threads dragging us down. When you sever those threads, you feel free, lighter, more connected. I've been talking more with Mr. Kondo after sessions. He's not some scam artist after all. If anything, he's a genius. Super successful, financially and spiritually. A guy like that must know a thing or two about how to live properly, right? He's been doing this for years, helping people turn their lives around. One guy in the group said he quit drinking after just 1 month. Another said his chronic pain went away. It's not magic, let me get that straight. It's just about realigning yourself with your natural flow. It's just a way of living better. Update 4. Okay, something happened last night. During meditation, the room felt different. The air got heavier, like something was pressing down on us, and Mr. Kondo was guiding us as usual, but his voice sounded distant, like it was coming from far away. When I touched the disc, I felt this surge of heat in my chest. Nothing painful, but intense. For a moment, I thought I saw something. A faint, spinning shape behind my closed eyes, like a giant wheel turning, impossibly huge, with threads stretched out in every direction. Kondo called it the true wheel. He says I'm making progress, that I'm starting to understand what it really means to let go. I didn't want to admit it at first, but I think he's right. Update 5. I've been reading some of your replies, and honestly, most of you don't get it. And that's okay. The wheel isn't something you can understand just by reading a post. You have to experience it. Some of you asked about the offerings. Essentially, we just give up things that hold us back. Physical reminders of our negative threads. For me, it was an old journal that I used to vent all my frustrations. I handed it to Mr. Kondo, who said that he'd feed it to the wheel, and then, during the meditation session, I immediately felt this release. You call it symbolism, but it's more than that. When the wheel turns, it takes those burdens with it. Update 6. Here's a twist for you. Yuto's thinking of leaving the group, and said that his mum's been nagging him about it. She thinks it's unhealthy, and calls it a cult. He laughed it off, and said that he's going to take a break to make her happy. Honestly though, I'm surprised. Yuto was the one who got me into this, and now he's walking away? I told him I thought he was making progress, but he shrugged and said, maybe, but it's not worth the drama at home. He said he'd tell Mr. Kondo at today's session, but he didn't show up. He's always been fickle. Update 7. Yuto hasn't been in the group for over a week now, but something happened at the last session that I can't stop thinking about. We were doing the usual meditation when the room felt different again. The air got heavier, and the grinding noise I thought I imagined in the first session was back. Soft at first, but louder as we focused on the disc. When I touched it, I saw something behind my closed eyes again, like a huge wheel in the darkness. I didn't mention Yuto's absence, but Kondo-san didn't bring it up either. It's like nobody noticed he was gone. Update 8. Something strange happened today. Yuto's mum called me out of the blue, asked if I had seen him. I told her that we'd been going to the group together, but he said he was taking a break. She got quiet for a second and said that she hadn't seen him in weeks. She's been calling his phone, but it just rings and rings. She thought maybe he'd gone back to the group. I told her not to worry, that he probably just skipped town for some space. Yuto's always been a free spirit after all. But, I don't know. I've been thinking about how he told me he was going to talk to Kondo-san before he stopped coming. I'm sure it's nothing, but I'll ask him next time I see him, just in case. Update 9. Yuto is still MIA, but I don't think it's worth worrying about like some of you suggest. The wheel teaches us that people come and go in life, just like threads unravel and reconnect. Maybe he's moved on to a new path, and that's okay. The wheel did its job for him. His mum called me again, asking if I'd heard anything. I told her the same thing. He probably just left town. She started crying, but I didn't know what else to say. What's the point in clinging to worry? The wheel takes care of everything in its own time. As Kondo-san tells us, the wheel turns for us all, whether we realize it or not, grinding away the old and making way for the new. Maybe Yuto's new led him elsewhere. Anyway, the remaining group's been feeling tighter lately. It's hard to describe, but the more time I spend meditating with them, the more I feel connected to something greater. The wheel isn't just a metaphor, it's a force that turns through all things, balancing and cleansing. Update 10. The wheel is always turning. I've started hearing it outside the sessions. Late at night, when the world is quiet, there's this faint grinding sound. It's comforting, a reminder that the wheel is working, even when I'm not. Kondo-san says that I'm attuned with the wheel. It's part of me now. I'm starting to see how everything in life connects, how every thread, every decision contributes to the greater balance. Some people aren't ready to hear this, but that's okay. The wheel turns for everyone, whether they realize it or not. Final update. To those of you still following this thread, thank you. I hope my journey has helped one or two of you see the truth, even if only a little. Yuto's mum has stopped calling me. I guess she finally understands that he's moved on. So have I. I've let go of my doubts, my fears, even my connections to the outside world. The wheel has shown me my purpose, and I've decided to dedicate myself to it fully under Kondo-sama's mentorship. You might not understand yet, but that's okay. The wheel turns, for everyone. Even you, whether you acknowledge it or not. It grinds away the old, the unnecessary, and makes way for the new, the essential. And when the time comes, you'll feel it too. That grinding pull, stripping away everything unnecessary, leaving only what's true. The wheel grinds away the old. It spares no one. And that's how it should be. Thread closed by OP. Before the video ends, I'd like to say a huge thank you to my supporters here on YouTube and over on Patreon, especially my biggest supporters. Dan Stefanovic, Cool Dude Organ, George Lopez, Holly Lyons, Modest Bulbasaur, Zach Horgan, Alana Pons, Asia Mina, Azrael Warakai, Chief Kochuake, Colin Munsma, Connor Lothan, Enzo is a Good Boy, Farewell Tattoos Jack Seffel, Gina Valera, Grace Archie, Hamish, Ian Belloc, Misty Blue Longy, Peter Logdredge, TNS Mum, Terry Ford, Pray to Jesus, LJB, Itai Alon, and Nephus 1988. Thank you guys so much for your continued support.